Tobias Hume was a mercenary, a professional soldier, and someone who we actually know relatively little about his life. But it's interesting, as a viola da gamba player, knowing the music that he left us. We feel like we have some kind of window into the kind of person this was, and that, probably as a soldier living on the edge, witnessing a lot of horrifying things, and of course also a lot of joy, a lot of love. I would say the most striking thing about the music of Tobias Hume is how connected to the viol it is, how idiomatic, but also how deviceful and varied and rich. So many different kinds of characters and pieces on very different scale. Some things feel quite epic, and then some things are very simple. You have a big variety, big range of emotions, and the main emotional connection is through something that was very much a part of music at the time, and I think also of literature and of art, but the notion of melancholy, the celebration of life, but the acknowledgement of, our eventual and inevitable death. So things are really connected in that way. I think all emotions are connected in a way that they're temporary. And so he takes you on the journey with all of these different kinds of pieces, from joy, from being in love, to tragedy, to something. I mean, the whole range, I would say, but everything connected through a spirit of melancholy, but a melancholy which is not about being sad, but it's also about celebration of life. So all of Hume's music, everything written for the viola da gamba is, well, almost everything. There are a few pieces written in normal notation, but everything is in tablature, and it's French lute tablature. So that allows you to read the same thing. It's geographical information about where to play on the instrument. That allows you to use many different tunings. And this was the practice with the lyra viol and most viola da gamba repertoire from the early 17th century in England in particular. Sometimes, of course, in his publications, like in many other publications of chamber music from the time, they printed different parts, on different sides of the page, so that you could put the music on a table and sit around the table with your friends and read the pieces together. So it's laid out like that, so that you have the treble here, the bass there, the lyra viol here, and a singer, for example. About the lyra viol in general, we have other sources of information, other descriptions. We have descriptions of an instrument that had sympathetic strings. But the lyra viol also has been described as a way of playing the instrument, in addition to being a specific instrument. So what specific instrument, Tobias Hume is referring to, well, he does say to hear your bass viol in His Majesty. So it makes me think that it's probably a kind of a bass instrument, more than a tenor size.
He published the first book of airs for the viol in 1605, which is one of the earliest solo publications for the viola da gamba, and it's a large collection. It's the largest collection of pieces in that time. I like Hume's music because it speaks to me purely and simply. It can charm me with simple music. It even feels a bit folky sometimes, and then you can be hit with moments of intense passion and almost painful melodies. He uses the expressive ranges of the viola da gamba really well. He can make it wail high up and contrast that with the deep, gruff notes down below. It's great music to play. I think it gives the people listening to it a certain nostalgia for older times that they never knew. Tobias Hume writes quite a large range of different styles. So we have the dances which were familiar at court, like pavains, galliards, jigs, almains. We have many pieces with what would strike us as odd titles, although at the time it was not so odd. But we have an English Frenchman, or My Mistress Hath a Pretty Thing, hit it in the middle, she loves it well, tickle me quick, and so he definitely had a bit of that British love of innuendo. He also wrote a piece for two to play on one viol. Now you can imagine if two people had to play a duet on one guitar, they could sit next to each other. But on the viola da gamba, if you need two, somebody has to sit on your lap. Okay, and it was called the Princess's Almain. So. Tobias Hume said, "The viola da gamba is the greatest instrument ever. Forget about the lute, this can do so many more things." And John Dowland, the famous lute player, said, "Hey, wait a minute, just wait a minute, this is nonsense." But in the end, Tobias Hume seemed to be right, because for a whole century, the viola da gamba was really the instrument in England.